Yeah, I do not even know what happened there. That was interesting though. Man, I don't even know if I want to. I'll probably just do 6 sessions today. It was supposed to be a 4th day anyway. Or, yeah, 4th day. Or 4 sessions today because it's a half day. But who cares? DaVinci Resolve. I wonder if this will mess up stream.
Adding titles and transitions and then exporting into a final video file for you to share wherever you want to. Now, just a quick disclaimer, this video is going to sort of not really go over all the more advanced editing features. This is more dedicated towards me, so you can go from something like this to as possible. Moving further to the right, we're going to look at this bottom corner here. We have the home button and we have a settings option. And so the home is going to take us back to that first screen that we were at before. So if you're working on multiple projects, this is how you would switch between them. And then the settings tab here, this is settings for the project you are working in right now. So if you wanted to change, say, the timeline resolution and anything like that, that's where this would be accessible. So yeah, by default, I think DaVinci Resolve 17 defaults to 1080p, so full HD. If you wanted to go to Ultra HD or 8K, you could do that as well. Change the timeline frame rate and everything like that. On the left-hand side here, you have more advanced features for your project setting, but generally, if you want to edit timeline settings and your main stuff, it's this little top part here. We're not going to mess with any of that today. So let's move over to the edit tab and have a quick breakdown of how this works. So basically DaVinci Resolve is sort of split up into kind of like quadrants, okay? So we have our top section up here, and these are the different menus that we can open, all right? And then on the left-hand side, we generally have access to our media, and that is consistent across all the different tabs in DaVinci Resolve. And then on the right-hand side, we have all our settings and options to edit different things. And again, consistent across the whole of DaVinci Resolve 17. Now, a few buttons I just want to point out specifically is this little arrow button here. Basically what that will do is drop this little box quadrant here and drop it all the way down so it takes up about 1/3 of your screen. And then likewise on the opposite side, you can do the same thing. I tend to have them up like so I have a larger timeline area, which is what this section down the bottom is. This is where you're going to be editing your footage, moving around your footage and everything like that. Where you're going to be viewing your footage. So pretty self-explanatory with all of that there. Generally with what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be using the media pool, which is where we're going to access all our footage and audio. We're going to look at our effects tab for titles and transitions. And then we're not going to look at the others, okay? On the right-hand side, we're mainly going to be using the inspector, which is where we're going to be using things like making font larger and smaller, you know, zooming in on footage, that kind of thing is what would be accessible here under the inspector. Everything else you can pretty much leave if you want to edit a video and you just sort of want to get it out of the way. So what we're going to do before we start is save this project so that we can get back to it. So you're just going to go File, Save Project, and it's going to ask you to name it. So we're just going to call it My First Video. Boom. And then it will update up here once that's saved. Perfect. So now that's all out of the way, and you should get into a good habit of saving your project frequently. Majority of the shortcuts that you would expect to do work. So Control S or Command S will save your project. So you just hit that and it will save. So let's bring some footage into DaVinci Resolve. To do that, we're going to right click in the media pool. Now, if it's not open, if you're under the effects library here, just make sure you click on media pool. You're gonna go right click and import media. Now you'll notice that all the menus in DaVinci Resolve 17 will always show the shortcut there. So if you want to start using shortcuts, you can. So we're going to go import media, and it's going to give us our file, save project, and it's going to ask you to name it. So we're just going to call it my first video. Boom. And then it will update up here once that's saved. Perfect. So now that's all out of the way, and you should get into a good habit of saving your project frequently. Majority of the shortcuts that you would expect to do work. So Control S or Command S will save your project. So you just hit that and it will save. So let's bring some footage into DaVinci Resolve. To do that, we're going to right click in the media pool. Now, if it's not open, if you're under the effects library here, just make sure you click on media pool. You're going to go right click and import media. Now you'll notice that all the menus in DaVinci Resolve 17 will always show the shortcut there. So if you want to start using shortcuts, you can. So we're going to go import media, and it's going to give us our little file browser so we can navigate to the footage. So I'm just going to navigate to where I've got my footage, and I'm just going to drag and select it all, and I'm going to bring it in. Now, this box comes up quite a lot. Change project frame rate. Don't fret, this basically is saying that the videos and audio that you're importing is slightly different to the settings that you have in your project. So if you have 4K footage and you're importing into a 1080p project, this would come up, and vice versa. I'm just gonna go don't change because I'm happy with the project, but if you know that the footage you're importing is filmed a certain way and you do want to change to it, you'd go change. So we're just gonna go don't change. And straight away you can see our media populates up the top. Now we do have a few controls up here. In terms of making it a larger list view, icon view, information view, all that lovely stuff. That's what that view, icon view, information view, all that lovely stuff. That's what that's all there for. Pretty self-explanatory with all this sort of stuff. Now, if you want to browse through the footage, you can just hover over it and it will show you the footage and all that sort of stuff. Pretty cool. Or you can double click on it. It's going to open it up into the source viewer here. And so this isn't in your project yet. This is just so you can view it on a larger screen and go. Just hover over it and it will show you the footage and all that sort of stuff. Pretty cool. Or you can double click on it. And it's going to open it up into the source viewer here. And so this isn't in your project yet. This is just so you can view it on a larger screen and go through it. So let's bring it down onto the timeline and start editing this footage. We can do that one of two ways. We can right click timeline and go create new timeline, and that is going to allow us to name the timeline. We can make the timeline match the project settings, or if we uncheck that, we can change the format here to whatever we want. Or you can just click and drag a piece of footage and drag it down here into our little area down here, and that'll automatically create a timeline based off of our project settings. Okay, so it's just going to create a 1920 by 1080p project. So when looking at footage, we can browse through here, and you can see we have our, this is basically the timeline for the footage. There's a grey line here, so we can scrub through by clicking and dragging. We can hit play, and stop, play backwards, and that sort of thing. Now when bringing footage down onto the timeline, sometimes you don't want to bring the whole clip. To do that, you basically set what is called in and out points for your footage. The hotkeys for that is I and O, or you can use these little arrows here and just say mark in, mark out. So if we didn't want the footage to start here, we want the footage to start in the middle open, we can hit the letter I, and you'll notice now that we have this dot here, and then we can move forward a little bit, hit the letter O, and now if we click and drag that footage from here, or if we click and drag it from up the top here, we're only going to get that little section that we just marked. So that's important to note. So again, if we were to go to a different piece of footage, we can scrub through, let's use buttons this time, mark in, mark out, and we can click and drag from the video here, or click and drag from here. It doesn't matter where you click and drag from, once you've set in and out points, that's all the footage that we're going to put in. And you will notice that when hovering over the video, you will get these two options here. This allows you to bring in either video only, or, as you might guess, audio. So a couple of different options there. What we're going to do is let's go through all that footage, spit out in and out points, and let's just drag all the footage down onto the timeline. You notice some of it has audio, some of it doesn't. Not a big deal. We're just going to click and drag them all in. So now we have our timeline, pressing spacebar to play it through. So navigating the timeline is pretty simple. We can just click and drag up this top section here to scrub through. Perfect. Spacebar to play. You can click to select and just drag it around and move your footage. Pretty simple stuff. So to start working together on the footage, the key hotkeys I want you to remember is A, which is our just standard cursor tool, and B. B is the blade tool, and so you'll notice when I hover over footage, we have this razor blade. Clicking will create a cut, and then if you go to the A key, it allows you to select things, and you could move that out and hit delete to remove it. And that is really the most common way to edit footage, is to use the B, so the blade, to cut your footage up and remove, and then basically you'd go through and you'd go, I don't want this bit here, I don't want that bit there. And then with the A, you're gonna go through, click and delete, click and delete. To zoom in on the timeline, it's Command plus or Command minus. Alternatively, you can just use this here. These gaps will remain there, so it will go black. To get rid of them, it's super simple. You can click on the gap and hit delete, and it will delete those gaps there. So the best part here is with your own footage, play around with cutting it together. So using your B key to, blade bits together and delete it, and then, click and drag your footage to move it. Use that to move your footage together. So what I'm going to do now is bring some audio down, and we're just going to quickly put this track here, and I'm just going to blade it at the end there and delete the rest. So we have a little bit of a audio track to this footage. Now, what I have noticed is this audio track is quite loud. So to lower the volume, we can go to the inspector up here and lower it here. And you'll notice that the waveform will go up and down. Now, let's add a quick title to this. To add titles, you're gonna go to the effects library. You're gonna go to titles. And this is where we have all the inbuilt titles in DaVinci Resolve. You can literally just click and drag them here. And you'll notice it adds a basic title. To edit the title, click on it. Over on the right hand side, this is where you can edit. So it adds a picture resolve. You can literally just click and drag them here, and you'll notice it adds a basic title. To edit the title, click on it. Over on the right hand, have all the titles. You're going to go to the effects library. You're going to go to titles, and this is where we have all the inbuilt titles in DaVinci Resolve. You can literally just click and drag them here, and you'll notice it adds a basic title. To edit the title, click on it. Over on the right hand side, this is where you can edit it. Use backspace, and here you can change the font, all that sort of stuff, change the size of the font, all that sort of stuff, and that is how you're going to edit the titles. I have a video playing around with all the new titles in DaVinci Resolve 17 up above if you want to check that out. Now, to do transitions, same sort of thing. You click on video transitions at the top here, and literally it's a click and drag business. So we're just going to click and drag, and you'll notice it will hover over and show you where it's going to place the transition, and you just go through and play. Super simple. So play around with that, add some titles, add some transitions, and get your video where it is with those little tips. Now, once you've cut that video together, you've added your title, you've added your transitions, we're going to want to export this out. To do that, we're going to head over to our Deliver tab, click on that. Now you can see that we have our video down the bottom, very similar layout. You can see here we've got our options up here to export, and we have this here is basically all of our cuts. So every time we've made a cut, it's showing it here. We can zoom in on the timeline so we can see pretty much looks identical to what we were just working on, because it is identical. And then up the top here, we have our export settings. Now, if you want to speed through the export, I generally recommend just going with the YouTube preset. It tends to be really good for compression and just sort of having a small video that you can share, browse to wherever you want to export it to. You know, this is pretty self-explanatory stuff. So we're gonna render, save it. Speed through the export, I generally recommend just going with the YouTube preset. It tends to be really good for compression and just sort of having a small video that you can share, browse to wherever you want to export it to. You know, this is pretty self-explanatory stuff. So we're gonna render, save it. And you can pretty much leave it at default settings. Perfect. We're gonna go add to render queue. So it's gonna queue this up and it won't start rendering it until you hit render all. So we're gonna hit that button and it's gonna do its thing. It's gonna take however long it needs to take based off of your computer. Here it is, all done. So there you go, guys. That's DaVinci Resolve 17 in 10 minutes.
Limited time offer. This is ArtGrid's biggest giveaway ever. Ready? Subscribe for the
暁は集ったイタチ
Instead of using the typical mom and dad parent titles, here are some examples. And Zizi.
Ice water turn Atlantic, night calling in the phantoms. Told them, hold it, don't you panic.
Negus.
Negus. What is the language of origin?
Yo, I'm done. I'm gonna sleep. I'm so tired. But yeah, that was fun. I guess I'll see the one subscriber I got, tomorrow. Yeah. Thanks, for stopping by. That definitely wasn't me on my phone getting a viewer, see myself. Nothing. It wasn't that. Have a good day. And what's that thing that guy says from